Alrighty, so we've got negative 2.8x plus 8.4 is less than negative 14x minus 2.8. So it's an inequality. It solves just like an equation. And the students always ask, well, what do I do first? And the answer is you could do any number of 4 things first. You could get rid of this guy, this guy, this guy, or this guy. And it doesn't matter which one you start with. It really doesn't matter. You just need to end up with x is less than or x is greater than something at the end. As long as you end up with that, then you've got the answer. So, and it'll be the same. As long as you don't make a mistake, it doesn't matter how you begin, you'll end up with the correct answer in the end. So I'm just going to pick one thing to start with first. But you guys can pick something else if you want to. And let's see, just to be awkward, I'm going to just like add 2.8x to both sides, okay? Add 2.8x. Right. Now that's a negative 14x plus 2.8, all right? So just for fun, what's negative 14x plus 3? Because 2.8 is almost 3, right? I've decided to add 2.8x to both sides, so that can be negative 2.8x plus 2.8x is 0, and it's gone away, okay? Right, and so what's negative 14 plus 3? Be negative 11. 14 bad guys and 3 good guys. Right? So if we have negative 14, plus 2.8, it's going to be around negative 11, isn't it? Right, okay. So we have to actually get the difference, because you go 14 minus 3 is 11, and then you stick a negative on it. So you actually have to go 14 minus 2.8. So it's 14.0 minus 2.8 and get the difference, right? Alright, so 0 minus 8 won't work, so borrow from this. That becomes a 3, that becomes a 10. 10 minus 8 is 2, right? 3 minus 2 is 1, right? And 1 minus nothing is just 1. So we get 11.2. So the difference between 14 and 2.8 is 11.2, agreed? But it's negative 14.8 plus 2.8, so that just gives us negative 11.2. So negative 14x plus 2.8 is actually negative 11.2x. Okay. And then write everything out. Good. So we've done one thing to both sides, and we gathered our x terms together. Now we've got a number less than an x term than a number. How could I at least try to solve for x, so at least kind of, isolate that x? So what would I do to isolate that x? Yeah, start off by adding 2.8 to both sides. Good. Now if you do that, negative 2.8 plus 2.8 is 0. So that's taken care of. Goes away. Now we can add these guys. So 4 and 8, 12, carry 1. 1 and 8 is 9 and 2 is 11. So we get 11.2, right? On that side. Okay, so now it's a negative 11.2 times x here. And I'd like to isolate that x, wouldn't I? So how do I undo multiplying by negative 11.2? Divide by negative 11.2 on both sides. So. Okay. So what's 11.2 over negative 11.2? Yeah. So the same number over the same number gives 1, but it's positive over negative, which gives a negative 1. Good. And over here we have, negative over negative, positive, same number over the same number. So this is actually, plus 1x, right? Or just x, right? But the question is, what do we do with that inequality sign? We've just divided both sides by a negative. Yeah, change direction. Instead of that direction, go the other way. And so negative 1 is greater than x, which can be written how? If I put x on the left, how else could I rewrite that? Yeah. Yeah. So reading like in that direction, x is less than negative 1. X is less than negative 1. Good. And then we can, graph that. So here's a line that goes from negative infinity to positive infinity, and here's 0. Here's negative 1. What would it look like if I graphed x is less than negative 1? Yeah. So negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, all these numbers here, right? All the way towards negative infinity. And we'd have we're not including, so we have a parentheses, right? Right. So from negative 1 towards negative infinity. And as an interval, what's the minimum? What's the maximum? Negative infinity. And the maximum is, right, negative 1. Is negative 1 included? So parenthesis. Is negative infinity included? No, so parenthesis. So we use the square brackets when something is included. We use the parentheses when our min or max are not included. And questions about flipping when you divide by a negative. I think we've explained that, but let me just give you an example. So we know that like 10 is definitely greater than, say, negative 20, isn't it? I just made that up. 10 is greater than negative 20, isn't it? What happens when I divide both sides by a positive 2? What do I get on the left and right? 5 here, and what do I get over here? Negative 20 divided by 2. No. Negative 10. Now, which is greater? So 5 is greater than negative 10, right? So I divided by a positive. What happened to the inequality sign? So then, okay, I do the same thing again. This time I divide by a negative. 10 is greater than negative 20. Let's divide instead by a negative 2, let's say. So what's 10 over negative 2? Negative 5. What's negative 20 over negative 2? Positive 10. Now, which way should the inequality go? Right. Negative 5 is less than 10, isn't it? Or 10 is greater than negative 5, right? So when I divide by a negative, that's when we flip the direction of the inequality. So that's just a simple example. But in this case, this is where we flip the direction of the inequality. We divided by a negative, right? So the inequality went from that direction to that direction, right? And the other thing about this problem is you guys got to start out other ways. Like, you didn't have to add 2.8x to both sides first. Like, if you wanted to, you could say add 14x. Some students do that. So add 14x. And if in that case, I'll just do it really quick. I get negative 11.2x plus 8.4. And I added, so inequality same direction. And I get that, right? And then I can subtract 8.4. Right, and I'll have 11.2x. And I subtracted, so inequality stays the same direction. And this minus this, if I add them, I'll get 11.2, and they're both negative. So, it's kind of like negative 2.8 bad guys and negative 8.2 bad guys is even more. Or a debt of $2.80 with a debt of $8.40 is a total debt of $11.20, right? So I get this is less than this, and then to get an x and so on, divide by positive 11.2. See that? Now, if I divide by positive, that's just x here, isn't it? And what do I get over here? What? And do I change the direction of the inequality? No, because I divided by a positive number. So that just stays the same. And is that what we got last time? X is less than negative 1. See that? x is less than negative 1. So my point is, it doesn't matter how you begin, as long as you don't make a mistake, you should end up with the same thing. X is less than negative 1, and again, you graph that. Here's 0, here's negative 1, and it looks like this, and it goes towards negative infinity. And that's the answer, okay? So it's the same thing. And again, you didn't even have to start with, there's another way. I mean, you could have decided to, add the 2.8 to begin with or whatever. It doesn't matter. But you should end up with blah, 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 x is less than negative 1. However you begin this, it should end up like that. This is a tough one, you guys. If you understand this, that's great. Like, I don't expect you guys to get this the first time. I would expect everybody to make a mistake on this question for sure. But hopefully with this video then, you'll at least understand, oh, I see where I went wrong. So some of the homework questions I give you all in this class, like, I expect you to struggle and to get it wrong. I mean, that's part of the learning process. And then you go, okay, now I know, right? So you're being challenged. So...